In 1066, a single arrow, whether real or legendary, marked the end of Anglo-Saxon England. The man it struck down was King Harold Godwinson, the last crowned Anglo-Saxon king. His reign lasted just 9 months, but those months were among the most dramatic in English history. 3 rival claimants, 2 massive invasions, 1 kingdom on the edge of collapse. This is the true story of King Harold, his rise, his rule, and his fall. To understand Harold's path to the throne, we have to begin with his family. Powerful, ambitious, and deeply embedded in the politics of 11th century England. Harold's father, Godwin of Wessex, was not born into royalty. He rose from relative obscurity to become the most powerful noble in England, thanks in part to his political skill and close alliance with King Nut, the Danish king who ruled over England from 1016. By the time of Harold's birth, around the year 1022, the Godwin family was already climbing the ladder of power. When Godwin died in 1053, Harold inherited his title as Earl of Wessex. It was one of the most powerful positions in the kingdom. With that, Harold controlled large swaths of southern England, including vast lands, armies, and resources. Harold wasn't just a noble. He was a commander, a statesman, and crucially, he was the brother-in-law of the king, Edward the Confessor. Edward the Confessor was a pious man, some say too pious. He focused more on prayer than politics, and he had no children, no clear heir. That vacuum created tension. Would the throne go to a foreign ally or stay in English hands? Now, here's where history gets murky and politics turns deadly. Across the Channel in Normandy, Duke William had his eye on the English throne. According to Norman sources, Edward had promised it to him years earlier during William's visit to England. Some versions even claim that Harold himself traveled to Normandy in 1064. There, they say, he swore an oath, possibly under duress, to support William's claim. Was it true? Did Harold knowingly pledge his loyalty to William? Or was it a trap, a fabrication, or simply a misunderstood diplomatic gesture? We'll never know for sure. What we do know is this: when Edward the Confessor died on January 5, 1066, Harold was the man chosen by the English nobility. The next day, he was crowned king by the Archbishop of York, likely to avoid the disapproval of Archbishop Stigand, whose position was seen as irregular by Rome. Harold's rise to the throne was swift, but so was the storm that followed. 3 powerful men believed they had a right to rule England. Harold Godwinson, chosen by the Witenagemot, the English Council of Nobles, Duke William of Normandy, claiming Edward's prior promise, and Harold Hardrada of Norway, asserting a claim based on an agreement between previous Scandinavian rulers. In the span of a few months, Harold would have to face both of them and fight for his life. The first threat came from the north. In September 1066, Harold Hardrada sailed to England with a massive fleet of Viking warriors. He was joined by Harold's own brother Tostig, the former Earl of Northumbria, who had been exiled by Harold and now sought revenge. They landed in Yorkshire and quickly won a battle at Fulford, outside York. Harold Godwinson acted decisively. He marched his army north from London in a stunning 4 days, covering nearly 200 miles. It was one of the most impressive forced marches in medieval history. On September 25, 1066, Harold met the Viking invaders at Stamford Bridge. The Norwegians were caught off guard. Expecting a peaceful surrender, they left much of their armor on their ships. The English attacked swiftly. The fighting was fierce. One Norse warrior, according to legend, held the narrow bridge alone, cutting down scores of English soldiers before he was finally taken down from beneath. By day's end, both Hardrada and Tostig were dead. The Viking army was annihilated. Only a handful of ships returned to Norway. It was a stunning victory. But Harold's triumph came at a cost. His army was exhausted, and their work was not finished. Just 3 days later, William of Normandy landed on England's southern coast, at Pevensey. Harold now had to do the unthinkable: march his battered army south another 250 miles to face a fresh, well-equipped Norman force. He reached London in early October. Many of his advisors urged him to wait, gather reinforcements, let William move inland where he'd be easier to fight. But Harold didn't wait. On October 14, 1066, Harold's army took up a defensive position on Senlac Hill near the town of Hastings. What followed was one of the most famous battles in medieval history, the Battle of Hastings. Harold's army formed a traditional Anglo-Saxon shield wall, strong, disciplined, and nearly impenetrable. William's army was a mixed force of Normans, Bretons, and Flemings. He brought cavalry, something the English lacked, and archers who fired volleys throughout the day. The battle raged for hours. The Norman attacks failed again and again. At one point, rumors spread that William had been killed. To rally his men, William lifted his helmet and shouted that he was alive. Then came the turning point. William's forces began to feign retreat. Small groups would turn and flee, luring segments of the English army downhill. The shield wall broke. Bit by bit, Harold's defensive position began to crumble. And then came the most famous moment of all, depicted in the Bayeux Tapestry. An arrow shot into the sky, striking Harold, they say, in the eye. Whether it's fact or myth, we may never know, but what's certain is this. Harold Godwinson died on that battlefield. His body was likely mutilated. His reign was over, and with him died the age of Anglo-Saxon kings. William the Conqueror was crowned on Christmas Day, 1066. A new chapter of English history began. Castles, feudal lords, the French language, and Norman law. All of it came from that single bloody day at Hastings. But Harold's legacy didn't end with his death. To the Normans, he was a usurper who broke an oath. To the English, he became a martyr, struck down while defending his homeland. The Bayeux Tapestry tells the Norman story. Harold swearing loyalty, breaking it, then dying. But it was written by the victors. Anglo-Saxon sources, like the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, portray Harold as the rightful king. Brave, pious, betrayed by fate. Even legends sprang up in the centuries after. Some claimed Harold had survived, wounded but alive, living out his days as a hermit in Chester or Canterbury. Others made him a folk hero, the last Englishman to rule England. His family was stripped of power, his name largely erased by the Norman elite, but history has not forgotten him. Harold Godwinson was not just the last Anglo-Saxon king. He was a leader forged in battle, a symbol of English resistance, and a man caught between two worlds, the old order of Anglo-Saxon tradition and the new world of Norman rule. Today we live in the long shadow of 1066. Its consequences echo through English law, language, and culture. And at the heart of it all stands Harold. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more deep dives into hidden history.